Okay, so all this fun online and everything got me thinking about with comparisons in blurbs. And let's see, an example I want to use is the Suneater stuff. Mainly because I was rereading it just to see like what caught my interest versus what might get me out of things. And yes, it does have a whole lot of description stuff. What keeps me going with that series is just all the little mysteries that are around the corner. But I find with some longer books like that, listening to it, the audiobook format seems to be my go-to when it comes to longer drives. But a lot of people in their reviews for Suneater, especially for Empire of Silence, are like, "Oh, this is a Dune ripoff." Da 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 da. And the only stuff that I find that was comparable to Dune really is the fact that the protagonist's background, he comes from a dukedom. His mother and father they're not intimate with each other, like on a relationship level or anything else. It's just a marriage of convenience, and he's decanted from, kind of like what Harrington had, where you could grow babies in a artificial womb, and then they're mainly based, in this case this is more of like to get rid of any kind of genetic impurities and all that stuff, or so that way their kids don't have any kind of drawbacks that say the common person would have. And yeah, there's some prolonged rejuvenation therapies. A lot of different books will share a lot of different ideas. It just matters in what direction you want to go to, like what kind of zigzag you have. Suneater shares a little bit of tech base with Dune, but the overall story goes in a different direction from Dune. They have, like body shields where swords can get through the body shield. Like the body shield protects against conventional weapons, firearms, things like that. I haven't really seen like a Bene Gesserit kind of amalgamation in Suneater, but it has other factors going for it. It's more of has a little bit of a space fantasy feel instead. In terms of like who the enemy is, the way they describe this enemy, they're like cannibals meets like ice monsters, moving in these ships that are like glorified kind of ice castle type setups. But that's fine. It's okay to go zigzag in a different direction. Hadrian goes in a much different direction than Paul ever did. Basically, you'll get to see there's a little bit of intrigue in the beginning where he thinks he's going to be the heir apparent, but other stuff happens, and then it's basically, oh, here comes that trap. I mean, I guess I can see why people do compare it to Dune because of the tech similarities. Both of them learning how to do some martial abilities, but the thing is, Hadrian doesn't have like it's not a similar setup to the Kwisatz Haderach at all. He has a different setup where he's remembered as a lot of different things and mainly like some sort of tyrant, but you won't really get much context for all that stuff until later. But really, I guess the only other comparisons really to Dune is the way their royal societies are set up. It has, all that court intrigue that you would expect from the old Dune books. But I think it's doing Suneater disservice to say it's just merely a knockoff of X, Y, or Z. So yeah, it's more of a defense to showcase that yes, you can take. It's okay, guys, to take ideas from other things that you've loved. To me, it has a little bit more of a Lawrence of Arabia kind of influence, where Hadrian has to remake himself because he basically gets the heck out of Dodge when it comes to his family matters. I would understand why. I mean, because it's built up to where he's more of a scholarly type. I mean, he's a scholarly warrior kind of type, but his younger brother's basically built like the heir apparent that the father wanted. And again, this mother and father don't share the same warmth that Duke Leto and Jessica shared. Even though Duke Leto was basically buried under a whole lot of commitments, the way Leto's stuff plays out and the way Hadrian's father plays into things, like, it's completely different directions, guys. Like, yes, there are some influences, but this is what I mean by, like, doing the compare and contrast. Like, what aspects of, like, Dune is thrown into this other series? What aspects of, say, kind of Romanesque, kind of crumbling edifice of an empire? Like, what else is thrown in here? You have to be a little bit more clear with the comparisons. Because so far, just upon re-listening to it while I was doing more driving to and from Grandma's, I got back up to chapter 6 again for Empire of Silence with the Audible. And it does share some aspects with Dune, but it's mostly in some of the tech base. Like, they do have like a mercantile guild, but they don't have like navigators in the same sense that the Spice Melange does everything. It doesn't really have the equivalent. In fact, Hadrian's father owns like a lot of uranium deposits, and that's how a lot of this stuff gets flung around. They do have kind of FTL type stuff, but it's just implemented in a different way from Dune. Dune very much centered on a particular planet. This thing jumps around to different planets, and sure, you could make an argument that maybe the empire that they serve is kind of like a crumbling edifice similar to what House Carino was in Dune. But this stuff goes off in different directions. Where Herbert zigged, Ruccio zags. It just depends on what you're looking for. I would say I've enjoyed more of the Suneater short stories, because that's something I can, basically go into and then, get in during a lunch break and then pop back out, and it's just like, okay, here we go. I can get this done, and then I can go back on my daily 9 to 5 kind of grind at work. That and the Suneater series also does time skips. The biggest draw for me, honestly, for Suneater right now is just the general mysteries surrounding things. Like, how did X, Y, and Z happen? And will any of Hadrian's kind of recollections, or, kind of like retrospective, kind of like what I'm doing with the Uplift Protocol, the Sleeping in Starlight retrospective, well, Hadrian's kind of do a similar thing with his own adventures, where he's trying to tell people, like, okay, here's this bit of history where some of these significant events happened to me. So, basically just take what you need from other stuff, like what you really enjoyed, and you can just put it in your own writing. It's very obvious that Mr. Ruccio enjoys what he's writing. You can tell. And the guy really does enjoy a lot of his more historical anecdotes that he puts in some of the opening chapters, and like different quotes that the characters will make, because it's set into a very far future of humanity, like probably, I want to say, maybe even million years into the future. Like, there's been a whole lot of stuff that's gone on, and the way they recollect time, and it's not AD or anything like that, but it's rather interesting. He's just built things up in a different direction than what Mr. Herbert did, and I can respect that. The only other thing I can really say, guys, is don't worry about being original, air quote. Put in everything you enjoy into your writing, read things that you enjoy, and then by osmosis, eventually you'll just be able to add it to your own writing. Just keep at it. That's all there really is to it. And yes, I do. The teal deer of all this is, yes, I do recommend Suneater. Yes, it can be long in the tooth with some of the descriptions, especially in the opening book, but you can tell that he enjoyed what he was doing, and unlike Wheel of Time, it doesn't take forever. Have a good day, everybody.